the dignity of the human person, from conception to natural death. Promoting the dignity of the human person from conception to death. Yeah? So we work in major ways through education. How do we do this? Through education. Train young people on different curriculums. We have the certified training curriculum, people 30 years, and basically teaching them why are we defending this dignity, So that is the certified training program. We also have a curriculum for young children, kids, called the Human Dignity Curriculum. And basically, just from the name, Human Dignity Curriculum, teaching them about the dignity that they have. We have so many curriculums that talk to us about biology, geography. Never actually curriculum that talks about ourselves as, since we were children. So we also have education. We have conferences, summits. We invite speakers to speak on the same things like, human dignity, mental health issues, and so on. So another arm that we are under is the culture. And in culture, we link human dignity and culture and how we express ourselves through art, through music, and so forth. So now basically the last arm, which is now advocacy work. So why are we at the UN? Like I said, founded at the UN, and participation within the commissions and conferences and summits as also our priority, because this is where so, like I said, we are one of the UN bodies, and because of that, that means we can access UN grounds. That means that we can attend meetings and even take floor to speak as a civil society representative. And I'm going to show you a video of one of our advocacy fellows who actually spoke in the last month, I think in March, at the UN. So we focus on these three main commissions. So there are so many commissions in ECOSOC, could be I think 10, but our main focus is on these three. So on Commission on Status of Women, Commission on Social Development, and lastly Commission on Population. So we attend the commissions and try to influence the outcome documents and offer language proposals. So in one of those many trainings, we have one of the chapters as international law. And this is where we teach you how to identify problematic language. You've had the speaker before me talk about things like safe abortion. We're not supposed to use, safe days. There is fertility window. So that is where we teach young people to understand this language and how they can offer a better language. So how can you get involved through advocacy? The basis of our training starts as a certified member. So signing up as a member is free in World Youth Alliance. However, for you to be able to speak up for young people, you need to be trained. So you go through a curriculum or a program called the Certified Training Program. Then you become a certified member. As a certified member, we can trust you to speak on our behalf because we have taught you about how to defend dignity in the right way. And then after you become a certified member, you can now do the Advocacy Academy. And in Advocacy Academy, this is where we teach you about white papers. So different organizations have different white papers. And our white papers are white papers on contemporary issues that are happening in the world, things like HIV, maternal health, reproductive health. So our white papers have our organization stand, or why I stand on such things. So once you complete the Advocacy Academy, then you will have an Advocacy Fellowship. This is where we give you the first-hand experience, or, you know, we now like give you experience to speak at this, you know, draft these documents and even speak at the UN. So lastly, so that is World Youth Alliance at the UN. In Kenya, because this is where the Africa office is based at, we have some of our successes in advocacy work. So our work as young people, whenever there is a bill in Parliament, we look at that bill, yeah? And our work as young people is, what about the dignity of the human person? You know, does this document see the human person as an object, or does it see this human person as a subject with dignity? Yeah. So in Kenya, this is what we do. If there is a bill that is at the Senate, Parliament, we look at this bill, and during the public participation stage, we write a declaration or a memo as World Youth Alliance and say, this is what we believe as young people, this and this and this. So if the document is problematic, we voice out our opinion through the memo or the declaration, and then we send it to them. So most of the time we're given a space to talk because it's public participation. And so far we have had successes in the influence of the reproductive health policy as well as the national family policy. We've also worked with different bodies in Kenya through the Ministry of Health. We've worked with the National AIDS and STI Control Program, as well as the NSDCC, to create policy documents in regard to HIV and AIDS and other, you know, general healthcare documents. So that's it for my presentation. I'd like to show you a short video of one of our advocacy fellow who is currently in New York. And so just to see how we actually impact
Youth Alliance.
Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen, every person is a bearer of unique worth and capacities, making up the potential of society. As we review the ICPD's implementation, let us recognize our alignment with this fact. The World Youth Alliance is a coalition of...
I'm not sure what happened.
Could I give the floor to the representative of the World Youth Alliance?
Madam Chair, alignment with this fact. The World Youth Alliance is a coalition of...
Okay. I'm not sure what happened, but yeah, so this is actually how we work. And as young people like you, you're invited as long as you're between the age of, 10 to 30. Our membership is between the age of 30, so you're invited to join us. And if you actually want to influence, the work, whatever the former speakers talked about. So this is a platform for you as young people to actually be in those spaces. So if you'd like to know more about World Youth Alliance, you can visit our website, wya.net, or you can even talk to me on the side or one of our representatives at that desk. And yeah, so that's it. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, I'll take them.
Okay. Thank you very much, Joy. Now, we asked Joy to speak to us to indicate it is possible for young people, including young people from Africa, to speak to the UN. Okay? While the situation is such that young people who hold pro-life and pro-family values tend to be locked out, okay? World Youth Alliance at this point in time is privileged to already have consultative status with these UN entities, so they can be there. So when we say that we are going to try and develop a parallel declaration, okay, however few we are, the document we will draft will be speaking on behalf of very many young people who are not necessarily represented by the current SRHR staff that is flying around within the UN system. Tuko pamoja? Now, I did share a document to the group of those who are here and to individuals who are here. Have you seen it? The summary of the Summit of the Future. Now, I'd like to acknowledge Grace Merton from Heritage Foundation, Hank from Christian Council International, my brother. We didn't get time to introduce ourselves.
Max.
You're Max. From which entity?
Heritage Foundation.
Heritage Foundation. You're welcome.
And former USAID.
Ah, okay.
Former deputy head.
Hey, how did the turn come about in your life? Would you like to share with us?
I'm in opposition right now,
Okay,
awaiting November.
okay. You hear that? We are all praying for November. There's someone who must get into power in the US so that we are listened to a little bit. Right now, no one is listening to us. Yeah, that's what he meant when he says he's in the opposition. We had a meeting here in 2019. It was at that time called the 25th anniversary of the International Conference on Population and Development, ICPD 25. And it happened in these very premises as a side event. Why? Because UNFPA and the Danish government had sponsored it in the KICC, called in volumes and volumes of people, okay? But when we would apply, when I say we, those of us who are pro-life and pro-family, when you file your application, they check you up on social media and they find out what it is you've been posting. If you've been posting very pro-life things, pro-family things, they would literally not let you be approved to attend the UN gathering. So we sensed at that time, I and Dr. Home realized that we had better do something that is parallel. Luckily, there was a proximity. These guys were in KICC. We walked into the bishop's office and asked for this space. And we had a panel here that some diplomats who had come to the KICC event ended up showing up here. I think we had Valerie Huber with us here. We had the Polish diplomat here. We had the Hungarian diplomat. We had the Nuncio, the Holy See representative in this country was with us. Quite a number of delegations came to our side event. And ultimately, the outcome document, apart from the one that came out of KICC, we had one read under the auspices of the US in another hotel, indicating that they were not totally agreed with what was going on in KICC. So it is in the same spirit that we did this one, okay? But this one, surprisingly, we've been allowed in, okay? I have a tag here, and I will be there. I will be there tomorrow. But I had an opportunity to examine the documents, okay? And they have a declaration, a compact on AI. They have a compact on education, and several other things. And I'm deeply interested in the education one. Now, that summary that I sent you, when you check it, you will see the kind of impact expected if the global community accepts the Secretary General's proposals. Have you seen the section on transforming education? Have you seen it? Max, she should share with you. Share with him, because I think he's not on the group. Hank, you've seen the summary?
Yes, it's what you shared.
Okay. Each of you, please, if you don't have it on your phone, sit close to someone who has it on the phone. So that is a summary of the proposals that have been made by the Secretary General, so that if they become sort of policy, global policy, they will replace the SDGs. Do you understand? It's coming at this point in time, first to expedite the SDGs. How many years are left for the SDGs to end? 6 years, okay? Because it was 2015, it was a 15-year program, 2030. You understand me? And for sure, the indicators show that not enough has been done to get to where we should get, all right? So already the international system is thinking through how to replace them. So if the Summit of the Future passes as it is, then the suggestions and implementation therein will then be the basis to work towards beyond 2030. Tuko pamoja? Are we together? I'm sorry, I keep sliding into Kiswahili. All right. Now, in the premises in Gigiri, there will be people talking about the substance of the document, but there will also be groups talking about implementation of the document. Okay? When we were at the press conference yesterday, they said this gathering is not a negotiating gathering. By negotiating, we mean that representatives of governments and states sit down to agree on the language of a document. Are we together? This gathering, the CSO, the UN CSO conference, is not a negotiating gathering. It is supposed to raise awareness amongst civil society on what the Summit of the Future is, and probably listen, okay, to what the civil society has to say. Now, we have evidence that the bulk of the participation at the UN Civil Society Conference is an open society funding. You've heard of the Open Society Initiative? Ladies and gentlemen, yes, the kind of money behind leftist ideas, the big, big money, usually comes along with the George Soros Foundation, okay, which is named the Open Society. So that already tells you that the kind of mood within the CSO gathering is likely to move largely to the left, okay, extremely liberal as you can think about it, okay. But there is space for being conservative, okay, because conservativeness actually relates to conserving the truth. You heard Dr. Home talk about the truth, okay, the truth. When you have the truth, you conserve what is true and what is good. When I was growing up, I used to think when someone calls you conservative, then you're backward, okay? But I'm currently happily conservative, and I would wish I get a few more young people who can be happily conservative, because conservative means you're conserving what is true and what is good, okay? We are not necessarily opposed to being progressive, provided that the progress is consistent with what is true, okay? Now, that summary, you each have it. Can you check on that section of transforming education? You seen it? Okay. There's quite a background there. Everyone can read for themselves. Page 2 of the document. You know, you have a global financial system that works, sharing benefits of space, a new agenda for peace. You've seen transforming education there? Yes. Someone read for us. Just that paragraph there.
A new vision for the creation of learning societies emerges, with education and lifelong learning universally recognized as a global public good. International cooperation is strengthened to advance the vision and support delivery of commitments made at the 2022 Transforming Education Summit.
International cooperation is strengthened. So they're looking at a future where international cooperation is done what? Strengthened to advance the vision and support delivery of commitments made at the 2022 Transforming Education Summit. Did any of you hear about the Transforming Education Summit? Any of you? Young people, see, you are still in education. Did you ever hear about the Transforming Education Summit of 2022? But the Summit of the Future is about implementing all, okay, the commitments made. So for us to understand this, we must look for the document of Transforming Education 2022. Are we together? All right? This is how we operate in this space of ours because we've mastered how the UN operates. We have been fighting the EU SCP agreement because it looks like a trade agreement on the face of it until you discover that it is asking nations to commit to implement documents that they never negotiated. You get the dynamic here? All right? Now, when you join the struggle for life and family and freedom, you ought to be keen, okay? Because the entire scripting process in the UN has been hijacked by the left, okay? So we have a duty to be keen. So now let's get that document. You just type into Google 2022 Transforming Education Summit. And you will land on a document that serves that purpose. Anyone has found it? You know, that is a good use of your phones, eh? Young people, eh? That's a good use of the phones. Transforming Education Summit 2022. You will see many documents. I would rather you take the one from the UN directly. Anyone has found it? The one from UNESCO is a summary. I need to get the PDF. Yes, resend me what you have. And post it on the group. You succeeded in sending it? We have a big problem in education, a very big one, okay? A university, for example, develops a program, okay? And they write the program now, meaning they list the things that students will learn, describe, etc. Take it to the Commission for University Education for approval. Takes 1, 2, 3 years before the program is approved. The program is approved, the university starts teaching that specific program, maybe it is development studies or international relations. By the time they start teaching the program, a lot of the content is archaic, okay? Especially for many of these practical courses. So it then takes updated teachers, okay? So the one who delivers the information, if they are updated enough, they would then be able to incorporate what is new in what is being, okay? So that's the part of the challenge. The other thing is the over-theorizing approach of education and less applied content. So if the teaching mechanism adopts an applied approach, then these things would be known easily. But I can guarantee you, you can visit any professor at any of these universities in the faculties of education, and they may never have heard about this document, okay? Partly because the UN has its own clique of people it works with, champions-only gatherings, so it is possible. So when the UN says youth participation, it is those youth that have been benefiting from UNFPA programs, from IPPF programs, okay? Because these guys have loads and loads of money, they have capacity to send money to the grassroots, okay? To support CBOs, they have even targeted faith-based groups at times. Are we together? So when they say we are mobilizing youth, it is the youth who are already in their database. And those of you who may not have had the opportunity to participate in this area, you may not necessarily be in that gathering where they are, okay? But I'm trying to tell you that the truth is on our side. Therefore, we have an easier job to do, because what we can do, we can even do with as little money as possible, all right? So that could respond to you. So have we found the document now? All of us have it? Okay? So we have the Transforming Education Summit. It is in red there. Can you go to the Youth Declaration at the end of that summit document? You see, when you check, that would be page 33. Okay? That would be page 33. That's where you are. This summit spoke for you as a young person on what you think should happen with regard to education. Okay? You were all at page 33? Now, search that document, just peruse, and see if it speaks for you. You seen it? Yes, our young people have spoken. The global youth have spoken, and this is their declaration. I have a very exciting one here. Anyone has found something good to share with us? Based on what Dr. Home just shared, okay? Those are the lenses I would ask you to read the Youth Declaration with. Anything of concern there? What have you found? We demand, number 4. You seen it? Yes. Demand, we hear, read. To what? In what? Hang on. What is gender transformative education? Friends, unasikia? What is gender transformative education that young people are demanding? Faith, what is gender transformative education? That you would like the university to teach you, that you would like high schoolers to be taught? Do you see the concern? Yes. Okay? But the Summit of the Future is saying it is working towards committing the international community to cooperate in meeting what is contained in the summit for transformation of education. And in this summit for education transformation, young people demand, I don't know which young people that one is, okay? Young people demand that decision makers, meaning your governments, okay? Your what? Invest in gender transformative education to create a present and a future that is what? See, we had a feminist discussion earlier when Dr. Home was speaking here. Eh? That is what? Feminist, equitable, and free from harmful gender stereotypes. Okay? These words sound innocent until you know what they actually mean. Do you understand? Okay? When Dr. Home was talking about authentic sexuality, these euphemisms, okay, gender transformative, gender stereotypes, they are all meant to corrupt. Okay? Gender used to be a very innocent word. Man, woman. Are we together? Now, gender means 180 different genders. So gender transformative education would be that dangerous. Gender stereotypes would be that. Are you following, friends? And this is a youth declaration. Do you hear yourself demanding this? There are people in this room who feel like they would like to demand this. Okay. Anyone has found anything else? Number 5. Why are you finding number 5 problematic? Read it. Let's go. All learners. All. Then they usually say age appropriate, comprehensive. Until you see them affirming masturbation for 5-year-olds. Until you see the kind of textbooks that are being used for this purpose. Doctor did expose the people making money off contraception. You saw Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, GlaxoSmithKline, Bayer. Then I saw two fellows that were also involved in vaccines. Johnson & Johnson and then Pfizer. The same guys. I saw them in vaccines. They were making some real money there. Now, the challenge is this. These fellows put money behind Planned Parenthood Federation. Okay, this is the largest abortion organization. Okay, and then this world's largest abortion organization is drafting the curriculum that is to be used in schools. If my business is selling abortion, would I be educating young people to delay sexual activity? I just need them sexually active very early. Because I have a market to create. If you are a parent and you knew that XYZ is an abortionist, would you wish that XYZ is the one who is talking to your children about matter of sex? So what are we doing by having these entities determine what is taught in school and how it is taught? But this 2022 Transforming Education Summit is intent on doing what? On making sure that all this totality of problems is implemented as part of the future. Is that the future we are thinking about, good people? I hope some of you are planning to become wives and husbands and fathers and mothers. Even if you're planning to be nuns, you will need a congregation to minister to. Even if you plan to become a priest, you need a congregation to minister to. And we have this entire sterilizing movement that has penetrated our thinking system. Okay? We are inviting you young people to take the courage to rebel against what is going on. Okay? Don't leave it to us old people. We are here, we are not here tomorrow. Okay? What saddens us is we don't yet have people to replace us. Okay? So I'm appealing to you that see the lie in what is going on and what is being packaged and have the courage to contest it. Any other paragraph you see that is contentious there? 6. Someone read for us 6.
We call upon decision makers to invest in inclusive education that embraces diversity and ensures the full participation of all students in the same learning environment regardless of ability, ethnicity, religion, legal status, gender, psychosocial needs, marital status, social orientation,
Social.
sexual orientation, caretaker role, and any other discrimination factor.
Yeah. Now, you are in Kenya here. These things we can still talk about. It is not yet dangerous for us to say these things. But you know that we had a case filed in which year? Eric Gitari and Galk against the National NGO Board. You've heard about that case? Okay. The Gay and Lesbians Coalition of Kenya went to the National NGO Board, okay, the Non-Government Organizations Board, seeking to be registered, okay, to get a formal registration as a non-governmental organization. The NGO Board said your declared objectives are still criminal in this country, okay, because we have several provisions of the Penal Code that criminalize same-sex activity, okay? So the NGO Board says, how can we go ahead and grant you a certificate of registration, allowing you to operate in this country, yet your stated objectives are expressly what? Criminal in our law books. So the NGO Board refused to register the Lesbian Gay Association. They went to court, okay? The High Court instructed the NGO Board to register them. You cannot discriminate against them. Register them. They still refused. They appealed. The NGO Board appealed. Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal again told them, register them. They appealed to the Supreme Court. Last year, February 24th, 2023, the Supreme Court then says that the word sex in Article 27 of the Constitution is the one that deals with the non-discrimination. Okay? The state shall not discriminate on the grounds of sex, pregnancy, blah, blah, blah. Very many, the whole list, 26-4. So the Supreme Court, because of its liberal holding, said that the word sex in the Constitution includes sexual orientation and gender identity. And therefore ordered the Supreme Court, the NGO Board to do what? To register the group. They have still refused. You understand me? They have still refused. Luckily, a similar case was raised in Uganda, okay, after Uganda passed the anti-homosexuality law, which was vilified and labeled as a kill the gay bill. They called it all sorts of names. But Ugandans were really angry at that time because the LGBTQ movement was aggressively recruiting, spending money in schools. Where's Timothy? He would tell you the story, okay? They're literally spending money in schools and targeting young poor boys and recruiting them and shooting pornographic movies and selling them on their pornographic sites. You understand me? So the parents were angry that this was doing what? Was taking place. And the members of parliament knew that the grassroots are angry. They had to do what? To pass the law, to regulate and to control and to punish this offense. So the promoters of the LGBTQ stuff go to court, the Constitutional Court, wishing that the court would declare the law as unconstitutional, so get it off the law books. The court, Justice Richard Butera is the one who read the leading judgment, says, we find it difficult to nullify the entire law, okay? Because it was passed in a bipartisan manner. Everyone agreed that this law is needed. Then they nullified only 3 provisions of that law. One unique one was the provision that would punish landlords, okay, an owner of premises, if you granted your premises to someone to rent and that person is promoting homosexual activity and you failed to report to the police, you would be penalized with a fine or something, okay? So that is the only provision that was nullified, but the entire law was kept intact. You understand me? Meaning that the court in Uganda, of course they have gone to the Supreme Court. I don't expect the Supreme Court to reverse the Court of Appeal. But the court in Uganda holds the view that we should protect children from this lifestyle. The court in Kenya holds the view that it is okay for the perpetrators of this lifestyle to register, associate, mobilize, and promote it. Actually, the court was very funny. It's like they're saying, you register them. Then when they commit the offense under the law, go and do what? Go then and arrest them and prosecute them. So when you read that text, okay, that says it is including sexual what? Orientation in what schools must recognize. So if you belong to a cultural upbringing that would recognize that if someone is deluded, as Dr. Homer was saying, okay, he used the word deluded. I am a woman with all this beard, okay? I'm just locked up in this male body, and I have the money. Sometimes they don't even have the money. It is the state that will pay for the hormones that I need to finish all these beards, the hormones that I need to soften my voice. So that's where we are at. The summit of the future is not very futuristic when it chooses to require that all member states would push things such as this. Okay? The second item that I would like you to concern yourself, now we go back to the summary. We go back to the summary. You've seen UN point 0, point 2. In the summary, you'll see one of the desired impacts if the member states of the UN accept the proposals of the Secretary General towards the Summit of the Future. You will see UN point 0. So what are the desires of the UN with regard to UN 2.0? You've not found it? In the summary, just in the same document where we found transforming education, you will see something else relating to UN 0.0. You've seen? Okay, so what is the desire? Yes?
The UN system is better able to support member states, including on the above changes through cultural and skills transformation in UN system entities. UN 2.0 is about upgraded expertise in innovation, data, digital foresight, and behavioral science to enhance UN system results, help build similar member state expertise, and accelerate shared progress towards the SDGs. These developments might be acknowledged in the pact for the future.
Is there any problem with that phrasing? Does it raise any flag? For you to understand what the challenge is with the suggested reform of the UN, okay, for you to understand, you need to know the state in which the UN is currently. Okay. First, it has adopted sexual and reproductive health as its dictum. Okay? Another continent that has adopted it is the European Union. All right? So today, when the European Union uses the term human rights, they mean everything here. So much so that those of us who used to promote human rights in the basic natural sense find ourselves out of place in many human rights meetings, okay? Because you are either talking about this stuff or you're not talking human rights in any case. Dr. Home explained these things, okay? At the bottom, what do you see? No, at the bottom. The two logos. United Nations Fund for Population Activities. You'd think these people would be interested in populating the world. Well, they're not interested. They are just interested in making sure your ovaries and uteruses are damaged not to carry babies. Okay? Then IPPF. Okay? We've already explained what they're about. And they have a very strong hold on the UN system. Okay? So every time you hear SRHR, that's what we're talking about. Okay? And if you think you've had the previous presentations indicated, okay? So teen sex, comprehensive sexuality education, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, the entire list of challenges, but you know, always someone makes money in the process. You understand me? There is money attached to each of these things. Okay? When teens are sexually active, they will need contraception. When contraception fails, they will demand abortion. Are we together? When you activate them in the homosexual lifestyle, they will need hormones, they will need lubricants, they need oil. It's an entire business. Are we together? It's an entire business. So anyway, that is the totality of this concept, sexual and reproductive health, that has taken a grip of the UN system. And a number of CSOs are bought into it because that's where the money is. Okay? There are loads and loads of money in promoting this stuff. And when you claim to be Christian or faith-based, they will bring you a few millions just to win you over so that they have one faith-based person who speaks their language. They're doing it over and over again. Sexual and reproductive health and rights a not agreed UN language. Do you understand, friends? Eh? I'm saying it again. Sexual and reproductive health and rights are not agreed UN language, meaning the core international human rights instruments, meaning the treaties that have been negotiated, do not use that phrase. Do you understand? I'm giving you a grounding that the UN at this point in time, by pushing this agenda, is pushing something that is not agreed and not negotiated. I did an analysis of the core international human rights instruments, just searching for the word sexual and searching for the word reproductive. Within the UN human rights treaties, there are 9, the core international human rights instrument. Okay? We have the Convention on Elimination of Racial Discrimination. That is what you have as CERD. Okay? We have the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Then the Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. Then the Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. CEDAW, it is a very popular one amongst the girl child. Then the Convention Against Torture and All Forms of Inhuman and Degrading Treatment. Then the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Then the Convention on the Rights of Migrant Workers and Members of their Families. The Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and the Convention on the Prevention of Enforced Disappearances. Okay? There are 9 negotiated human rights. By negotiated, I mean that each document was negotiated phrase by phrase, word by, that what is in these documents was generally agreed by all state parties. When you search these negotiated human rights instruments, thou shalt not find SRHR. You get the point I'm making here? Even CEDAW, the women's thing, the closest it is mentioned is on the website that introduces the instrument. It is not in the instrument. Someone smuggled something there. All right? Unfortunately, the treaty body mechanisms, meaning the committees that have been created to promote the instruments that create them, for example, if you have the Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, you have also a committee on elimination of all forms of discrimination against women. That is what we would call the treaty body. Now, the treaty body responsible for the Committee on Civil and Political Rights, which defines the right to life and prevents states from arbitrarily taking people's lives, has defined in interpreting this treaty, say that the protection of the right to life should not be enforced in such a way that women are denied the opportunity to abort. Do you see how strange that is? That the protection of the right to life should not be enforced in such a way that women are denied the right to do it, to abort. General comment number 26 of that committee. So the UN system and a number of treaty bodies are already walking away from the negotiated position on these matters. Unfortunately, the reform being proposed by the Summit of the Future is not a reform correcting this. It is going to be a reform furthering this radicalization of the treaty bodies. Do you understand? You're tired, are you? I need to feed you. Okay? UN 2.0 is not going to correct the problems that we are seeing. Okay? The problems which you and I, who are pro-life, pro-family, and in defense of freedom are seeing. No. It is only going to perpetuate these problems. Okay? So is SRHR an international right or an international wrong? The fact is, the core international human rights instruments which contain the hard norms are silent on these rights. SRHR has been born out of conferences like those ones, born out of ICPD, Beijing, and all those reviews. Many of these documents are rarely negotiated by states parties. They're usually agenda-driven, and they gather champions only. Okay? That's why they come out the way they are. So SRHR is not international law. What did I say? SRHR is not? No, it is some wishful stuff for people who are making money off a highly sexualized generation. Okay? I will not go through those definitions, but I will tell you another problem with the UN system. There is something called the special procedures of the United Nations. These are usually advisors to the UN. They are consultants to the UN. They are supposed to be independent in the sense that they are not on the UN payroll, but the UN is supposed to facilitate their work. They are usually identified for their expertise in certain fields of human rights, and then they are given the mandate. We have right now, I think, 58 mandates. And I think 12 country mandates, and the others are all human rights. So you get a special rapporteur on the right to water, special rapporteur on the right to food, special rapporteur on extrajudicial killings, okay? That totality of various themes. So we say thematic mandates and country mandates. Madame Michelle Bachelet is the current High Commissioner for Human Rights, in the sense we have a Secretariat for Human Rights Issues, the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. But she's already bought into the SRHR ideology, that when we develop stakeholder reports to the UN, we who are pro-life and pro-family, you would be very lucky if they quote more than 3 lines from your report. They can pull out 1 line and then put it there. And then they overquote from all these other reports of these guys. I'm pointing out these 4 special rapporteurs because they have been the most aggressive against our position. Okay? The special rapporteur on the right to physical and mental health, meaning the special advisor to the UN on matters of physical and mental health. Then the special rapporteur on freedom of religion and belief, the special rapporteur on the right to privacy, and the UN independent expert on protection against violence and discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. Okay? This one is the youngest. I think it's a 2017 mandate, Victor Bolosh. Yeah, it's one of the youngest mandates on SOGI. This special rapporteur on the right to education holds the view that parents who exempt their children from sex education are a barrier. You know, parents had discovered that some of this stuff is being smuggled into schools, and they demanded the right to opt out. You understand me? Okay, it should be me to talk to my children about matter of sex. And he holds the view that parents who do that are a barrier to access of rights to children. He also holds the view, and this is the person advising the UN on matters education, holds the view that children have a right to pleasurable sexual experiences, which can only be achieved through what? So don't be surprised that a lot of the content of comprehensive sexual education is actually meant to sexualize children, not meant to teach them the value and holiness and sacredness of sexual activity. Okay?
And it must be done from the outset of, at what time do we send kids to school? These days we send 3, play school, 4. So from the outset, you understand me? They have the right to what? Are you reading what I'm reading? I didn't cook these things. Okay? These things are contained in his report. Okay? I'm not cooking them. From the outset, they are entitled to what? The right to pleasurable sexual experiences. And if they're still too naive, we teach them from the outset. He also holds the view that sex education has been obstructed in the name of what? So some of us who are considered over-religious are a problem. In the name of religious ideas. Pleasure in an enjoyment of sexuality should be one of the goals of what? You're sleeping. Pleasure in an enjoyment of sexuality should be one of the goals of what? What is CSE? So you now understand what CSE is about. Nothing to do with the values associated to sexuality. You understand me? The authentic sexuality that Dr. Homo was talking about. Wapi. It has to be towards pleasure in an enjoyment of sexuality, abolishing guilt feelings about eroticism. For me, when I was growing up, we used to say, "Atambiamba," isn't it? That someone is doing bad manners. That's what we used to say when you're growing up. So sexual activity before marriage was considered stigmatized. Are we together? This fellow is saying destigmatize sexual activity for children in school. Okay? Now maybe your generation is happy with that kind of approach. Right? You look for husbands to marry when they started sleeping around with the women when they were 10. You're now finding him at 30. You're looking for a wife to marry and she started sleeping around at 10. You're number 40 in the line. Do you understand? Okay. Then my friend Mofoke, this one is the crazy one. She's the special rapporteur on the right to physical and mental health. Generally, she's the advisor to the United Nations on matters health, physical and mental. But for some reason, her background is interesting. She's an outspoken advocate for SRHR, a former abortion provider herself, and an advocate for legalizing what? And this is the kind of person who is an advisor to the UN on matters mental and physical health. Do you understand the problem, friends? Now, if I've not made you angry enough to try and do something about this problem, I don't know who will. Okay? I don't know who will. I point these things out to indicate that when you critically look at the Summit for the Future, it will have very smooth language. But deep in there, they are going to be committing our heads of state to very perverse stuff. Okay? And if we don't keep vigilant the way World Youth Alliance has told us, when a law is coming up in Parliament, make sure you get a copy, read it, and analyze it, and make a contribution. If we don't do that, what they agree upon in the Summit of the Future ends up in our laws because they have the monies to sponsor bills. So if we are not vigilant enough to point it out to our legislators and the masses, it gets to become law. Hank was telling me he had a guest in his home who is a politician and right now is facing charges for having made a tweet that sounded homophobic, isn't it? Tell us about it, my friend.
Yeah, it's about a member of parliament from Finland called Mr. Päivi Räsänen. She's a medical doctor by profession originally. She is already 30 years in parliament. She is a a mother of 5, a grandmother of 12, married to a conservative Lutheran pastor, so all you want, she is. Very friendly lady. I had her over in the Netherlands last weekend to present her case. What did she do? She, because her church leadership wanted to take part in the Pride Parade in 2019, and she, as a conservative member of that church, she warned the leadership of the church in a tweet and said, don't do that because the Bible says this on homosexuality and the practice of that. And that was Romans 1, verse 24 till 27. She made a picture of that and she posted that together with the tweet. And that is the...
Oh, so she posted a text of the Bible?
Yeah, the picture with the text of the Bible.
Okay.
And then she was accused of hate speech because the prosecutor said, you hate and discriminate homosexuals, while she was warning her church leadership, which is something totally different. But the persecutor is so adamant that she's now already, for that single fact, for 5 years persecuted. Now the Supreme Court has accepted the case, and she's awaiting the verdict of that court. So if it can happen to her for this single fact, it can also happen to others, especially in Europe. I'm from the Netherlands, and that's why I invited her to the Netherlands to make people aware of what can happen all of the sudden.
Thank you very much. I did not extract the report of Ahmed Shahid, the Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Religion or Belief. If his report is taken seriously by the UN and promoted, it will be hate speech to say what I'm saying right now. You understand? What I'm saying, what I'm talking about now, will be hate speech. Okay? If his report is taken seriously. So that's the reality in which we are at this point in time. My question to you young people, are we better off suppressing our religious values and cultural values, or are we better off upholding them? It is in your hands, because these guys are just waiting for those of us who are still making noise to grow old and die off. The new generation will make these things happen. Okay? Woe unto you having heard these truths and you do nothing about it, because it will unfold in front of you. And you say, I wish I had done something about it. So how many have I recruited into the struggle? Have I recruited any? Okay. Yes.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So thank you so much, first of all, for educating us on all of these things, because there are some things, honestly, I didn't know. But I have two concerns as a young person. So I have friends who are like either gay or lesbian or whatever, and sometimes I tell them like, you know it's wrong yourself, like heart-to-heart talk, it's wrong. And I try to rationalize to myself, I know homosexuality is wrong, and I know that I should try and talk to my friends to do better, yet I still face that predicament of, am I a hater, as you said, like hate speech? Am I a hater? Or am I being a bad friend for, okay, some people look at like I'm condemning them, but I try, as I said, to rationalize that I'm interacting with them as a person, not with their gayness or their lesbian, whatever. So what should I do in such a situation? That's my first question. The second question is, now in the case where even someone's livelihood, someone's career is on the line, as a young person, I'm trying to build myself, I'm trying to...
Looking for a job.
Yeah. So in that case, where there's that fear of, if I speak up, then I could not even get a job maybe in a certain organization that I really admire. Then, you know, can I trade off in the down low, but I know deep down what I hold as my values. So what should I also do in that situation? Like still speak up and say no, and risk getting the job, maybe a career that I want, career path that I want to follow, or should I face value? Yeah, do your thing, but deep down I'm like, I don't support it. Yeah.
Yeah. Serious question. I'll start with the last one. We had a VCT clinic voluntary counseling and testing. And these facilities get a lot of money from USAID and several entities towards what they call key populations. You know the key populations? Yeah. Kamboy, you know key populations? You've heard about them. Yeah, it is the term used in the healthcare sector in Africa to refer to people who live that lifestyle, which science has shown are most exposed to HIV and AIDS. Actually, it is more prevalent amongst that people who live that lifestyle. Are we together? So this VCT, somewhere in Hurlingham, had people like you, okay, who know these things are wrong, but the protocols that have been given to us to administer medicine are such that we shouldn't say anything about the lifestyle. We shouldn't try to rehabilitate people from that lifestyle, okay? Because when an adolescent presents themselves, an adolescent boy is living this kind of lifestyle, they would give them the ARVs, antiretroviral drugs, along with anal lubricants as part of the package, as in they receive when they go for the checkups, okay? Part of what they give them is out together. Now, the conscience of some of the people in this VCT was not clear. They were saying, we cannot be doing this, okay? So what they did is to actually advertise that they offer services to key populations, but essentially they started them on a path towards healing them. Out together, counseling, etc., using the same system, okay, of USAID-funded projects, whatever. Then it turned out that the dispensation of lubricants dropped. You understand me? See the indicators. How many of these have you distributed? You understand me? So the distribution of items associated with that lifestyle dropped. These guys were struck off the donor list. Are we together? The other thing I need to point out is who is your friend? One willing to see that, my friend, you're sick, okay? I need to devise how to help you recover, okay? Help you rediscover yourself. And another says, go on, go. Who is your friend really? Okay? You may not judge them, but I think if you're a good friend, you can point out to them the path they are leading and where it is likely to lead them. This is what I tell young people. Your future is not going to be a future of jobs. Okay? And take it from me. You are not going to be job seekers. The sooner you adopt the mindset of being a social entrepreneur, the better. Okay? By the time you go to the workspace, you should be taking the job as an addition, not as the only card. Okay? So that you're not forced to do things against your conscience. Tuko pamoja? You understand? That is very possible. If the education processes you're going through, you don't see how they are going to be deployable to earn you a living, okay? Begin adding short courses or whatever. Someone yesterday at the conference, the press conference, was telling me, she's a lady, she said, I taught myself graphic designs for 6 months, but I had also done 4 years of mass communication, the degree in journalism. But I'm earning from the 6 months more than the what? The 4 years. Are we together? So the sooner we get ourselves into thinking along those lines, so that when we choose to do the white-collar jobs, no one is pushing us to do it against our conscience. All right? But for that to happen very well, you need more young people thinking like that, so that when time comes for you guys to take charge of these countries and these governments, we have a number of you who are able to stand for the truth and not to be compromised. Thank you very much. We are where we should be. It's time for us to eat something and then reassemble for the panel. We will have a panel discussion. Hank, Grace, is Max willing to sit on the panel? Okay, these fellows traveled very long distances to come and attend this summit, this conference, so we would like to hear from them why they spent all that money to come here and what they expect us to do to support what they are doing, okay? All right, so go enjoy your break, have something to eat, and let's meet at